Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. Welcome back to our show, Option Forward. I'm your boy Drew, always joined by the second half of our show. GQ Nelson, how you doing today?
Doing good. Ready to go.
Ready to go?
Ready to go.
Did you sleep well?
Oh, most def.
All right, you took a couple naps.
Whoa.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, in the studio today, we got a gentleman from humble beginnings, from what I hear. You know what I'm saying? But I'm gonna let him explain that himself. Probably started out in the pastor's choir, youth choir, something like that back in the day. Had to do a little A and B selection, you know. But he's worked with some of music's greats, from Usher, Justin Timberlake, Pharrell. It's just an honor and a pleasure to have him. I'll let him introduce himself. Mr. Kenyon Dixon, how you doing today?
I'm good, man. What's good? I'm on double duties today. I'm talking and parenting, so
hey, man, that's amazing.
Got to keep the little one busy off to the side.
Black fathers are out here.
Yes,
though.
sir.
Hey, they say we can't multitask. You know what I mean? Hey,
oh man, we got to. We got to.
Getting it.
Hey, so how did it with you coming from how did it all begin, Kenyon? I did my research, but let the people know. How did you get your start?
Man, so I'm from Watts, first and foremost, from the Jordan Downs. I grew up in a very musical family. My mother, she was a singer. My father was a guitar player and a singer as well. All of my siblings, all musically inclined. I'm the youngest of 7 of them in total. So music is kind of the family business. But I started, in church, obviously. Grew up very strict Christian household. And I got into the arts. I was actually not trying to do music specifically, because when you're the youngest of 7 kids who can all do music, it's kind of like, maybe I should find something else. So I started dancing. I was playing sports. I got into musical theater. Did all of this stuff that ultimately brought me back to music. So before I got into, strictly pursuing my artistry, I got a chance to tour with some amazing artists. I started off with Tyrese, who is, a legend and a hero from my side of town, and for R&B music overall. Then I worked with, tour with Faith Evans, Jill Scott, Justin Timberlake, Kelly Rowland, all of these incredible people. And I got to write for a lot of them, write for Faith, write for Tyrese and Tank and Kenyon and Justin Timberlake. And so, just kind of, I always knew that I wanted to put out my own music and wanted to stick with that. So, I learned from some amazing artists, from the greats, and I kind of took everything and just went full-fledged my own artistry, bet on myself, man, and I won, and I'm still winning.
For sure, you definitely are. But how did that connection get established? So, I know you went, kind of like the performing arts route.
Yeah. But
how do you go from performing arts to being on tour with Faith?
Yeah, so I feel like my story is not typical. So I had a music teacher, Terrence Lee Jones, rest in peace, and he got me involved in the heavy entertainment side of the arts, and I ended up training for it for a while at Debbie Allen's Dance Academy in Culver City. And so he was, he's who kind of got me into musical theater. From there, I went on to he would kind of MD, be a musical director for a lot of different artists, and he would call me in. One of them, ironically, was Tashina Arnold. That was one of the first artists I worked with him. And I was singing background for her. And then my brother, Scooter Sledge, amazing drummer, BJ Chicago Kid's brother, older brother, actually. Okay. And so Scooter was Tyrese's MD. And I got a call from Scooter saying yo, I need you to come to this rehearsal. Cause all of us even if they're not from the city, the open mic and music scene is pretty tight. We kind of all know each other. So he called me and was like, yo, Tyrese needs some singers for something, come through. So I came through to the rehearsal, did that show with Tyrese. And from there they were like, yo, we kind of want you to be the section leader for the vocals. So I started being in charge of all of the singers with Tyrese. If we would go to different cities or if we had a show somebody couldn't make it, I would have to make sure, you know, I would say like, this is who we're gonna bring on, make sure they're good. And so that was kind of the beginning of that for me. And Tyrese, ironically, was my first professional writing placement and my first Grammy nomination from that placement. Wow. And that actually happened because they were at the house. Nobody knew I was a writer. They were at the house working on what ended up being his open invitation album. And I got a call to come in as a singer to just lay some backgrounds and stuff. They're like, we need Tyrese's singers to come in. I got there, the writers were late. And Tyrese was like, well, we got this track. Like, if any of y'all got some ideas, y'all want to jump in the booth and like,
you were ready.
Yeah,
you were
like,
ready.
Opportunity knocks, right?
Yeah, like if you want to jump in the booth and lay something down, like, you know, like by all means, go ahead. I'm like, all right. So I just hop in there, lay something down. He come in like, yo, who did that? I'm like, you know, me. He's like, add some more, like keep elaborating. And literally that turned into a record called What Took You So Long. And so that was crazy. Kind of similar experience with Justin. I was on tour with Justin Timberlake for a couple years before the writing opportunity presented itself. We took a break. We were in Europe for like a month, but we had like a week break. And during that week break, I knew that they were going to write and work on some music. And so I made a comment to one of the tour managers like, yo, man, y'all want some hits, you know, holla at me. But I'm just, you know, playing around. He came back and was like, yo, man, wasn't you supposed to send me some stuff? So I'm like, okay. So he really wanted me to send him some stuff. And I sent him some records, came in to the show the next day. And my music was playing on the speakers in the arena that we were in. And I was like, okay, who's playing this? Like, where did this come from? And I'm walking through the hallway, everybody's energy is different. Yeah, so imagine you got the staff, you got, you know what I'm saying, you got like all the administrative people, and I'm walking through the hallway and everybody's like, it's that vibe of like, you the man. And I'm okay, what's going on? Why is everybody, you know, they're like, oh man, I heard your music is so amazing. So I'm confused because I'm just walking to the dressing room. And so
you have people sliding out. You know what I mean?
I'm like, okay, what do y'all know that I don't know? Like, so I find, shout out to my guy, Andre Person, man. I find Andre, I go to his office and Dre is like, he had called me that morning. That's what I forgot. He called me that morning like, man, did anybody know that you were writing stuff like this? Because I sent him over a folder. So he had been going through the folder. That's why the stuff was playing out loud. So he was just playing like the records he liked. Long story short, one day before we go on stage, I hear my name like in the hallway. Everybody's like, where's Kenyon? Where's Kenyon? It's JT's assistant. And she's like, Justin wants you in the room. So we're all kind of looking. I'm getting up. I'm like, okay, like, am I about to get fired?
Yeah,
like, I'm like, what's going on?
Shit just got real.
Yeah. I'm like, okay, what's happening? So, and this was like a week or so or 2 weeks after me walking into, you know, the arena and the music and stuff was playing. So there was like no connection there to me. I'm just like, okay, so what's happening? I get to his door. Now, if you know anything about touring and like, you know, touring with like high profile artists, you don't, even as somebody on the band with them, you don't have access to their personal space 24/7. Like, so if security is in front, they have to know that you're coming, you gotta have a certain pass, like, you know what I'm saying? So, and they know what time, like, cause you know, we would come in and do vocal warm-ups, but it wasn't that time. So, so there was no reason.
You really thought you was about to get fired.
But security, when I walked up to the door, security is like, so I'm like, okay, so you know, because you would usually stop me like, well, you know, you can't come in here now. So I'm like, all right. So I open the door, I walk in. It's like a scene from like, I felt like I was talking to the Godfather or something. It's like two of them sitting at a dark table, like, and I'm just standing there. I'm like, should I close the door? And they're like, yeah. So I sit down at the table like, okay, what's up? And I was like, man, your music is amazing, man. Like, I really gotta, you know, want to make sure I work with you and blah, blah, blah. So it was super crazy. Long story short, from that conversation, ended up being my first placement with JT, which was on the Trolls World Tour soundtrack, a record called Perfect for Me. So, and you know, from then I went on, me and JT have been writing together for like the last 3 years or so. So yeah, it's just my entry into the game, I feel like was a lot different than most people. Like, it didn't come from, you know, some like random opportunity necessarily, but it just kind of, it was literally a case of like right place, right time, and being prepared and having done the work in advance, not knowing that was going to be the moment, but you know what I'm saying? Dang. It all made sense. So
Dang, that's
Yeah,
crazy.
long story short, that's what happened.
That's crazy. That's
Short story
crazy.
long.
But okay, so like if your upbringing was like anything like similar to mine, like anything that was played in the house that wasn't James Cleveland, Kirk Franklin was considered worldly music.
Oh, yeah.
And we don't do that. So
Yeah,
how did you get your parents to buy into you pursuing that musical side of your career?
They never did. So my mother raised me, raised all of us. And so my father, when he was around, he was a little more chill. Like, although he was, the same. But my father did quartet music. So if you know anything about quartet culture, it's more likely for him to be okay with what I'm doing than what my mother was, than how okay she would be. And so, same, I would get in trouble. We would get whoopings for having CDs in the house that were not gospel music. And again, with my father being quartet, like I grew up listening to a lot of like Jackson Southern Airs, Mighty Clouds of Joy, like Canton Spirituals. And on my mother's side, we got like Karen Clark, Kirk Franklin, Yolanda Adams, CeCe, BB Winans, like, so she never really supported it. What happened is when I got into the arts, even like dancing and stuff, because what went hand in hand with that wasn't gospel music.
Right.
I had like someone who ended up becoming my godmother, like a figure in the projects where we grew up, who saw my potential and talent and was like, yo, I want to introduce, that's how I met my music teacher. She's like, I want to introduce you to somebody who kind of does this on a different level, because I think that your interest in it and your potential from what I see is greater than you just doing it right here. And so she ended up taking me somewhere, and long story short, my mother kind of delegated anything outside of the household to her. Like, okay, well, if you want him to be involved in this stuff, then you got to be the one to take him. So it wasn't until I was an adult that my mother really got a chance to tap into who I was as an artist. I remember one of the first shows she came to was in Vegas with me touring with Justin. And that was the first time she really got to see that. And then she came to my show at the Roxy. And so she's at, here she is at a show that sold out with a room full of people singing her son's music. I think it really clicked, for her then. This was just August 21st, like this year.
Wow.
And I've been doing music forever. So
she's like, how much you getting paid? Hold up. We good with this? Like, that's what's up.
So it's been really cool, man. And I think it's something that she should experience. I'm glad she's like, much more open now in that space, because I think that she should be able to see these benefits, the benefit of this as well, because it's played a huge part in it, because my upbringing like helped cultivate the skill that I have now. So I want her to see it and be as proud as I am, for what's being accomplished.
Most definitely. What artists do you think? Well, I know you said it was like different from you because you had the passion for the arts, but it was more like, let me try something else because everybody else is doing this. But like, what artists did you listen to where you was like, yo, I can do this too. Yo, this is it.
Fire.
Like when that light bulb went off, like, yo, no, this is it right here. This is what I want to do.
Man, so there are like certain records and certain artists and memories that I have like connected to growing up. Specifically, a song and a video that I remember kind of being a huge inspiration was My Way by Usher. My Way by Usher, also You Make Me Wanna. Yeah. And the dance and the chair scene, all that stuff. Like I remember that vividly and being like, man, this is super cool.
Silk shirts he had on.
Exactly. Yeah. I was like, man, this is pretty fire. And then same with Tyrese. Tyrese being like, again, like a hometown hero. There was a moment where Tyrese came and like did something in the community. I was a child. One of his albums came out. He came and did a couple songs at like a community center in the neighborhood, passed out some CDs. And that was one of the first physical CDs that wasn't gospel that I ever had, that I could like keep. Like my mother, I don't know why she didn't really give me flack
because he was
for that one. Yeah, I really think that's yeah. So I think those are two like artists and moments that I really credit to, kind of invest in, when I started to invest those thoughts and feelings into, just what I wanted to do. And also got to give much credit to like the artists that were my age and my generation, like B2K and like they actually played a huge part, like Lil Romeo, like that, because they were like visual representation for us of what. Bro. Yeah, literally, man. Because so P. Miller. So when I was younger, I had the braids and like the bandana with the diamonds on there. Like
I thought you were gonna say Bow Wow. Like
Bow Wow as well, bro. Like that whole what's now the Scream tour.
Right.
Yeah, they were all like huge inspiration for like my age group. Because we got to see what it would really look like if we could tap into that at the moment. So I think I just want to make sure I show love to them, because I think a lot of times we always talk about like the older artists, but there were a lot of like for my age group, my generation during that time, we had a lot of like dope inspiration that was like direct reflection of our age. So yeah. I think I had quite a few that kept me inspired, man.
For sure, man. Would you say that okay, so I know you've done a lot like behind the scenes, right? So for those who are interested in like, composing music, writing for others, how does the business side work down? What we've been learning so far in this kind of space is like, yo, man, you got to pay your dues. And pay your dues pretty much mean you paying out of pocket or you working for free. So how does the business side of things work? Like when somebody like, yo, like Kenyon, like I need you to come through and write me a banger. Like, how does the money work?
So I think paying your dues is subjective, because I think it depends on your journey, it depends on who you're around. Because I think a lot of times, when we think about our journey to the top, we like glorify like the struggle part of it, as far as like you have to almost be in this place to where you have to almost give up, or you won't really appreciate. Like I don't subscribe to that. I think your journey is whatever it is. You're gonna face challenges, but you don't gotta almost want to quit and go to somewhere else before you realize that that's what you should be doing. So I think, for me, I absolutely paid my dues. I had the shows where I would go and sing for free. I had the shows where I would go and sing for all these big artists at like, just different weekly things that would happen. They would have guests come through and I'm learning 20 songs and getting paid $50. Like, but at the time it was, what I'm saying? It all ended up lending to the bigger picture. Like this was me sharpening my skill. I was getting able to, getting a chance to make the connections. Cause a lot of these artists I've now worked with in a different capacity. And some of them are like contemporaries with me now. So it's like, it was, it was cool for myself. But you do have to work, because you can have the skill there, but you do have to work to the point where your reputation matches that, that skill directly. Like you have to have the experience to be able to, move certain ways. So like now, if somebody calls me, they know not to call if it ain't right, if you're not talking about the right thing. But there are still some people who have done some amazing things for me who can call me right now and never have to talk a dollar amount, and I'm gonna look out just because that's the relationship, right. I'm saying, that we have. But my point is I've also done the work and I have the experience now to be able to demand certain things in my field. So I think and ultimately you keep working, because there's always like another goal for you to reach. I think that's the cool part. So no matter how great you are, I feel like there's still always room to, even expand that. So you just keep working and keep building, price gonna keep going up.
Shiz, I got a question. So like I was actually, it's funny that like he's talking about this, right? Because we were kind of talking about something along those lines, right? And one of the things that I was telling him is like, I always like to try to figure out ways to grow, right? Yeah. And I think one of the two things that I was telling him today, I was like, one of the two things that is crucial for us is to reach certain milestones, right? And like one of them, I was like, they were talking about like reaching achievements, right? Achievement is easy, you know what I mean? There's a book to it. You go, you read it, you get it done, bam, right? But then there's fulfillments. Fulfillment like comes to a whole nother level where you're like, you achieved everything that you had to achieve, and then on top of that, right now you want to give, right? You want to put that knowledge out there. So where do you feel like you're at this point in your career? Like, are you on the achievement side, or you feel more fulfilled with everything that you've accomplished so far?
I would say they're actually working like simultaneously for me. And I think where they intersect is purpose. Because when you get to purpose, your purpose is always, you have these vehicles that kind of lead and give you, that how you're able to navigate. So for me, when you're in your purpose, it's obviously going to give you, you're going to go through the achievements and, execute things that you want. The fulfillment comes from purpose, because they always say purpose is not where you necessarily feel the best, but where you're most effective to other people. But then when you start to understand that, the reciprocal part of that is the fulfillment, because you're realizing that you're doing something that is making you most effective, which is, there's still achievement in that as well, I would say. But I think for me, it's simultaneous. I'm like, in reaching my goals, I feel fulfilled. I feel fulfilled because I know I'm doing something that I truly love and something that I also should be doing. So, yeah.
Oh, okay. I like how you responded.
Yeah.
Prep a little bit. All right. Do you okay, so something that we was just talking about in the kitchen area, like with your manager and stuff like that, as far as the messaging and R&B now, and kind of how you was saying you was listening to Puff Daddy's. Ask him that question.
So I was like, back in the day, I mean, okay, let me back up. I'm driving out here, had an hour and a half drive over here, and I definitely like to mix up my music, and today I was like, you know what, I need to hear some Diddy. You know what I mean? So
okay.
I was hearing some Diddy and shit, and most of it is saying, let's just get married. You know what I mean? All these songs that bring you back to like, damn, those were the days, right? But then now we got the WAP. You know what I mean? Now, like everything just went like 160. You know what I mean? Like, there's no longer that value of union. Relationship, finding that significant other that actually matters, right? Mm-hmm. Now it's like, what you got? Can you buy me some heels? Can you buy me some like purses?
Yeah.
And I'll definitely drop it down the pole. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. Right. So like, what's your take on that, man?
So I think there's always been that dichotomy and some sort of dynamic with music. I think that during previous eras, the industry just did a great job, and labels, I guess so, just did a great job with pushing the right option forward. See what I did there?
Yeah.
Yeah, they did. They did an amazing job with pushing the right music to the forefront. Because the thing is, the music we're acknowledging that was great then, that not so great music was also being made. It's just that what was prevalent was the music that had the right message. But then, it's a cultural shift, because I think that the demand is different. People are living different lives. The lifestyle is different. So if art imitates life, then it makes sense that we're getting the type of music that we're getting. But I will say, again, it's all about
the WAP though. Like,
because that's a dynamic.
It was always wet.
That's it. Yeah, it was all come. I'm just saying that is a lifestyle, though. Like, there's many, but that is a lifestyle. That is a reflection of something that somebody is interested in. So I think it just all depends on who was in those, like, the positions and what they decided they wanted to push forward and monetize. We're talking about the music business. It's all about business. So if that's the most, what they can make the most lucrative, it's always gonna be that. But I think every generation, I've went back, I've listened to, still listen to the records from the 90s, still listen to the records from the 2000s. I could find the same type of records we got today. They were just smart enough to not make those the face of that era of music. That's really all it is.
Sounds like K Jewelry.
So pretty much we always sound the same. You know what I'm saying? It just wasn't your single on the radio.
Wrong sponsors.
That's wrong sponsors. You get about 4 or 5 tracks in, you may hear the WAP. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Right. We've heard it, man. I was just listening to Betty Wright not too long ago. And I mean, Betty Wright she has some context. There's a record I heard from her called You a Hoe and You Don't Know. And I was like, whoa, when was this written? And it really was a record from like, what I want to say like the 90s or like, you know, so, or even earlier, but I think it was like one of her later records. But it was just crazy to know. And I was purposely
doing it.
Yeah, because I was purposely looking for it because I never felt like, because I think my generation gets attacked for like, as if that's the only kind of music that we can make. And I don't make it. And I know so many other amazing artists who don't make it, but the focus is never on us. It's always on the type of music that people don't want to hear. And the music that we make exists, but we want to hear it in the spaces where we're hearing the music that we don't want to hear. And it's like, you're not going to hear it there. So just stop listening in that space and go listen to, you know what I'm saying? A space where you can find the music that you want to listen to. So I started just going down a rabbit hole, like, man, let me see like really what was happening in the 90s and the 80s. And like, and it was the same thing. There was a lot more gatekeeping that I think helped. Gatekeeping has a negative connotation, but you think about Motown has a sound because it controlled the quality of the music that was coming out. It had to be a certain standard. Right. You think about even like Bad Boy era, you even go there. There was a certain type of sound. You think about So Def, certain type of sound. You had these masterminds behind, the music. Quincy Jones, any artist Quincy has ever touched, Babyface, any artist Babyface has ever touched, there's a certain standard and a certain quality of music.
The Game.
Yep, I think that's the one thing that we've gotten away from. There's no camaraderie and like community in music anymore. It's kind of everybody is only making their own thing, so it doesn't.
Okay, but I think that's funny that you say that because you said it was that gatekeeper because everybody's going independent now. So now I can do what I want to do because I don't have to worry about the majors. You know what I'm saying? Like now I get to put it out there. It's not controlled. I can do what I want. Do you think that can probably be an issue right there? You know what I'm saying? With the quality of stuff, since everybody can put anything up on Spotify or something like that?
I think there's different levels to independent, to being independent because you can also be independent within a major system. And that's a lot different than a grassroots indie artist who's literally funding their own stuff and, having to pay for everything out of pocket. When you got a machine behind you, it's never going to be genuinely independent. It's always, it's just different. It's like a completely different playing field. But I think that to that point, what I will always argue is the biggest difference with the quality of music now is the resources that we have. Technology has advanced. You do have, the average person can now wake up in the morning, record a song with equipment at their home already. Right. And upload it, and nobody can tell them that it's not a good idea. They can just put it out. So the likelihood...
like, what your mama did, though? You know what I'm saying?
The likelihood of that in the 90s, walking into somebody's house, it was not as likely that they would have a setup for you to just come in there and do whatever. You would have to go to the studio, which means that you were subjected, even against your will, to other people's opinions. Because if you go to the studio, and more than likely those studios were, had some sort of label connection, you had the A&Rs, you had all of these people there like giving input as you're creating. So I think that might be the biggest disadvantage now, that we're just getting more music. There's more music dumped on us daily, so you got to do a lot more digging to find the quality. But I would say for that same reason, technically that means there's a lot more quality music. There's just still a lot more music that's not quality, that's more than the music that we want to hear.
Boy, this boy got a career in politics if he wants to.
He just solved the problem. No, but like, okay, so everything that you were saying kind of like made me think about the whole thing that I was telling you about, like, how Kanye was like, you have Kanye, you have Kyrie, you have all these different celebrities, right, that are like, fuck it, drop me. Yeah. And I think it's kind of, in my opinion, I feel it's a movement to kind of release that control, right? Like, you no longer can tell me how I'm gonna, like, what I'm gonna say or what I'm gonna do because I stand behind my brand. So what do you think about that? Like,
I think it's important, man. I think you have to stand for something. They always say, like, when you say, oh, if I was back in this time, this is what I would have been doing. And it's like, whatever you're doing now is exactly what you would have been doing, because this is our equivalent to whatever those historical moments were. And so I think that you need those figures who are not afraid to speak up, because it's all systemic. So we're going against the system and having to figure out how to change it. And you don't do that by having these ideas and just talking about it in private. Somebody has to say it because it's going to resonate with somebody. I speak up all the time about independent artists. I had strong opinions about what happened with the Recording Academy and the Grammy nominations and everything like that. I spoke out about it. I think there's a way to do it, where you're able to be tactful, but it's important because if not, you subject yourself to the same thing every year. And as in that situation, this is something I'm subscribing to. I'm submitting my music every year. So what benefit does that do for me if I'm going to keep doing it knowing that nothing is changing? That's like setting myself up to, feel the same way every year. So I think like when it comes to like Kyrie, who I think did an amazing job with, what he expressed, I think that it's just important that this is the freedom of speech that we argue in theory. This is what it actually looks like. So
Nike was gangster about that too. Nike was like, we could afford to lose him. Like that's what it's coming down to. Like there's no, it's coming to the point where now it's like, before you're like, okay, he's out of pocket, but now you're starting to kind of see the full picture. Like it's the brand necessarily. It's not the person, you know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, like they're not doing anything harmful. They're not hurting anybody. They're just voicing their opinion. Yeah. And that's really what it all, like, I kind of like that because I feel like in some way we're kind of bringing values back. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Like we're not standing for like shit, because now like, shit, now you have to submit yourself to watching YouTube's, like, you know what I mean? Like doing shit like that. What do you mean? I'm a man. Like, you know what I mean? I can't be doing stupid shit like that. But like, if that's what's gonna generate money, people are like, fuck it, I am doing whatever I have to do. And I think that's the part where we're starting to see a little bit of an end. But obviously, it's almost uncomfortable. But it was like in the 90s, it was cool. What do you mean? Like,
I mean, we have cancel culture now, and there's two sides to that, because I think that the sensitivity can be great because there are a lot of toxic habits that we had just out of habit and out of religion, things that we should have been let go of. So I think that being able to be sensitive to more stuff is good because it sparks some type of change. But I think the downside to it is that we've made everything subjective, as if nothing can be objective anymore. Like there's still general rules of what's good and bad. Like art is a great place to make that point. Like we listen to some music and you can say like, oh man, I don't like this. Like this song is off key, and somebody be like, oh, it just doesn't work for you. No, there are rules like in music. Like if there are chords there, you probably should make sure that you're singing within the scale. Like you can't tell me it's just me. Your ears are just, I've been told this before, your ears are just too tuned. I think you just don't get it. No, this doesn't sound great. Like it's okay, but like we can't. I think we try and make everything subjective, and if you make everything subjective, then that means there's no real gauge or metric system for what's good or bad. And in that case, that means that nothing in the world means anything.
And that's crazy, because you know what? There's really not one answer. Right? Even though like we're raised in like school tells us that there's one answer, but there really isn't. You know what I mean? There's so many different answers, but we're forced to be able to go this route because that's the route that's supposed to. But the reality is like so many different freaking things that could lead to the same way. I don't know. Shit.
Yeah.
No,
that shit got me like, like what's up?
Let's not go down that rabbit hole. Let's keep it about the music today. All right, we talking about the music today.
It's bullshit.
But no, like jumping back to the music side of things, like what I was thinking about is like this, what I perceive from a consumer standpoint is like this delayed exposure, right? So for example, don't come after me, Beehive or anything like that, right? But you got Chloe and Halle, right? They've been with B for years before they actually blew up and started doing their own thing. But now that they are putting out their own music, if you reference back to B's albums, you can be like, oh, I know who was in the studio when that was made. Gotcha. You know what I'm saying? So why do you think in my opinion, what it seems like, you keep contributing to my success, and when I'm tired and I don't feel like making no more albums, then you get to go and do your thing. Is that what you perceive it to be? Like from the artist side, from you being on inside of the industry, am I right, along the right lines or not?
I think depending on the person, there probably are certain artists that may be applicable to. But I think in general, it all, like, the industry changes so fast. I think realistically, you just never know what it's going to take to break an artist, because you can invest and give them the best of everybody and everything, and there still could be a reason that they don't connect that has nothing to do with you. Like, the industry could have taken a shift, and now what you built and invested in is no longer what is attractive. So it's like you have to find these different avenues until you know what's happening. And then you have somebody like Beyonce, who's incredible. I think learning from somebody like that, I think it's always going to take anybody under an artist extra work to show their individuality, because I think it's not the artist's fault. It's that most consumers automatically try and find similarities, and it diminishes like your genuine light, because they decide anything that you do is connected to that person. So I think in instances like that where you're working with amazing artists, they already see that in you, which is why they're working with you. And then like you could be building something, and it just sometimes takes time for people to really see who you are and not connected to anybody else. So I think that, just in general, that could be the case. But yeah, I think there are instances where it's you have certain artists who, like, I was in a situation working with an artist where we did some business, and I basically learned you never sign to an artist that doesn't have a proper infrastructure, because you can have all of the best wishes in the world and want me to do amazing, but if you do not have the business infrastructure there to back that up, none of that means anything. So when you deal with artists who do, like B, again, B's incredible, and she has the system to be able to delegate people to whatever she wants to invest in. So I think that we need more of that, more of artists who already know, like, I'm incredible, but let me make sure that I have the people who can do the same. Yeah, do the same thing for you. I think that's really important.
Okay, I like how you answered that, Kenyon. All right. All right, so like thinking back, like over time, I'm not for sure. I mean, from the way I'm understanding your story is like, you prepped for that opportunity, not knowing when that opportunity was going to present itself, but it happened to be at the right time. But I listened to your albums. I listened to all your albums, right? And like, I'm like, why haven't I heard of this guy before, man? Like, this dude this is stuff I like. You know what I'm saying? But were there times where you wanted to throw in the towel because you wasn't charting up the way you wanted to? Not on a chart sense, but you know what I'm saying? Your own trajectory on where you thought you should be. Never any times where I thought about not doing music. I think there were more so times where frustration was higher than it normally would be. But I also understood that that's what I signed up for. Like, I'm by choice an independent artist. And that's when you choose to do that, you have to understand what that looks like. And the journey is gonna look a lot different, and it's not gonna be as easy as somebody who has the label backing and like the support of the system, but it's a lot more rewarding because I'm always making music that I love. I've never put out a single song that I didn't love or that I didn't want to do. I've never put out a song that I didn't write myself. So it's like, I don't know what that feels like to have to do something that you don't love and not have the support. It's like you kind of got to pick and choose. But yeah, for myself, never thought about giving up on music because I understood my purpose early on. I knew what I had was something that nobody else could give to the world but myself. And if I didn't, and again, tapping into purpose, understanding that meant I had something that other people needed, I understood that if I didn't put it out there, somebody's missing something.
And so I just kind of, push past it, still have those frustrating moments. And it's amazing now, to finally have like the visibility and, to be able to get the looks. Still cool, but you're never, the truth about an artist, you're never going to be satisfied, because even everything could be happening and your mind is going to be like, this should have been happening 10 years ago. It doesn't matter what, you know what I'm saying? You can be at the height of your career, and literally as a creative, your mind is just, that's just the reality. It's going to be like, but remember that one time where you submitted for this and they were like, nah, and then you're like, man, I was making this same type of music. Like, that's just the natural like blues of being an artist. So I think I've just, kind of charged it to, that's just the game. That's just how it goes. And I'd much rather take longer and be able to have a sustainable career. Because at the end of the day, I can still push a single album for all of 3-4 years, because the music is never gonna hit its peak as long as it's, us doing it independently. So, and this is stuff that I can live for the rest of my life off of, having this art that this is what classic music does. You look at classic artists, they're not touring off of new music. We're going to see them because of the music that we know them from. And I think that, I've done a great job, and the team has done a great job with making sure that we stay on course with following that formula.
Let me ask you something. So we got like roughly about like 6,000, or don't quote me on it, but we have a lot of emotions, right? Mm-hmm. So, and I think one of the things that I think sometimes we fail to recognize is that a lot of our course of action relies on emotion, right? So as an artist, what type of emotions do you want to throw out? Because I mentioned you saying like people are missing out. So what type of emotions your music brings to your audience?
I think a range of them. I think that's why my fans and even new listeners who come across my music, I think that's why they love it. Because you listen to an album, there should be a range of emotion. And I have this theory that, no person as a human, you don't feel the same emotion 24 hours a day.
Right.
You go through different emotions. So I have this theory as it pertains to art, that if you make an album, the more emotions you can tap into, it increases the chances of them really diving into your album, because then you have something for however they feel. But if you just have an album full of sad songs, or an album full of happy songs, or an album full of love songs, it's like, when somebody wants to feel another emotion through music, that means they have to now leave away from your catalog and go listen to something else. So I've learned to build my music around the range of emotion. And it still all can be, encompassed in love, because love has a range. Love is not just, the happy side. It's, just a bunch of different stuff. But make it sound good, and make sure that, people can just give them something to feel.
You got fellas doing right. You got fellas doing right. Let me get married. Type of shit.
No. That's funny that we talking about emotions, right? All right. So you got your album that you got out right now. You know what I'm saying? Closer, right? There's a track on there, Marvin Gaye.
Yeah.
All right. You say it's okay if I take my time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So with that, and hold on, what else did you say? Feel the love is forever or something like that, right? So what I took from that was more of a patience. You know what I'm saying? Hey, let's enjoy this feeling. So is it important for you to exercise that patience in all areas of your life?
Absolutely. Another line in that same song that kind of sums up what you just asked. I say, there's a couple of ways to touch. Intimacy is much more than the things that we see. Because I think that speaks to that patience to navigate and find, learn your experience, the person, the situations that you're put into, wherever it is, whatever aspect of your life that you're dealing with, any of this, it's so important to carefully search, and so that you can get a scope of what you're dealing with to know how to approach things. And so, with that record, it really is a matter of patience and the art of learning and not rushing, because you understand we have time, and if we do this right, and take the proper time that we need, we won't regret any of this process leading up to it, because we will have explored everything possible. And now every single time moving forward, we know how to activate it because we took the time to learn, how to navigate. But I think that's a life lesson in any room you're put into, any circle of people, that you're around. Watch, observe, and then speak once you learn what this means to you,
Sure.
So why Marvin Gaye though? I was also into. I was like, why are you tired of that Marvin Gaye?
Yeah. So Marvin Gaye was a huge inspiration for the project overall. So Marvin Gaye, I mean, he's just raw. I think he's one of the smoothest artists to ever exist. He has the finesse, the charisma, and so I felt like that song also had that same finesse and charisma. But I wanted it to, because I was thinking about if Marvin was, here in 2022, how would he approach a record like this? Not necessarily what type of record would Marvin do, but if Marvin got on a record like this, how would he approach it? And so when I got to the hook and I wrote that sexual healing line, I was like, I have to call it this song. Literally, it has to be called Marvin Gaye, because he was already, his energy, the soul of Marvin was already the vibe of this song.
Doing it.
Yeah, and it really does. The way it translates, even live. Anytime I do that show live, and for the Closer tour, I started, it's the album from top to bottom. Yeah, so I started the tour show off with that song. The way it sets the vibe, and and you don't have to do anything, because there's an energy, there's a soul there. It's so smooth. I just walk out, and I could not sing until the bridge if I want to, because the audience is singing top to bottom. And I think that speaks to the proper execution of Marvin, and that finesse and that smoothness, because it's something that it activates and opens up, that makes people want to just be in that moment and not have to think about anything. Because there's a million people at the shows who feel like they might not even have any musical talent, but they don't second guess it when they're in this space. There's something facilitated in the space that makes them feel comfortable enough to be like, we all together, we just gonna, make it what it is. So
we lighting candles.
But no, what gives you, because it's amazing how you're breaking this down, but what gives you that vibe? Because it's exactly how you describe it, as that being your opening, first track. Bro, I was every other track on this album gonna be not what I like, but this one right here, I have to listen to everything else. You know what I'm saying? It just sets the tone. So how did you know? How did you know? Yo, we opening? Because if I can only assume, it would be yo, so what track we going with first? You know what I'm saying? You get the team together, and you was nah, this one right here got to be first.
So when I go through sequencing my album, it's always me by myself, because what I have to filter it through is how I feel. So knowing that I have to perform this music, if I don't feel great about every single part of these records, it doesn't matter what anybody else says. I'm always gonna say no if I don't feel like it's it. So Marvin Gaye, I'm not gonna lie, I went back and forth with having that record as the first record, because it felt like such a special record. And I was like, this is gonna be one of the most special records on the album. Do you really wanna put this first? But then every time I would listen, I'm like, it's so audacious to start an album off with a song like this. I'm like, you would never have somebody put what they feel like is their best song on an album first. But I was like, it's gonna set the tone, and it's gonna grab enough attention and make people want to be like, I have to listen to what you just said, and be like, I have to listen to the rest of this album. And so I was nervous about it, because I was like, this is real R&B, and in this climate, you never know what people are going to gravitate towards. So that could either work for me or it could work against me. So I was like, all right, let's do it. And if you know anything about releasing music, when you're pitching the DSPs, you got to have a focus track. Marvin Gaye is what I wanted to be my focus track. And I was like, I think this 2 R&B is not going to sit with the records that I know them to highlight. So I picked other records. Album drop, every playlist, Marvin Gaye, Marvin Gaye, Marvin Gaye. I'm like, had I known that y'all was gonna pick this one, this is what what I would have sent in the first place. So I just think a key part with this album was I tapped into the OGs and the greats that I love, from Anita Baker to Marvin Gaye, Stevie Wonder, Donny Hathaway, Otis Redding. I mean, I was trying to find the the soul, because I argue it all the time. Like soul should be a non-negotiable in R&B music, and so I listen to the records that I love, and I retain the feelings. And when I started working on my music, I started trying to match it with those feelings. And when I would start feeling something when I was writing, I'd be like, okay, does it make me feel like any of these? And I literally was connecting the dots. And when I was able to listen to them and they made me feel like I did with the classic records, I was like, it's finished. Because that's all I wanted. Because I'm thinking, to make classic music, all classic music is something that triggers those same emotions every time. But it has to do it consistently. So I listen to each song so many times to challenge myself and be like, are you just gassing yourself or do you really feel this way? And so I would take breaks from the music, come back, go listen to other music. And when I press play, literally feeling was the same every single time. And I was like, okay, cool, this is the album. Yeah. So that's how I knew I had
pattern
it.
recognition.
Yeah, bro.
Pattern recognition.
Yeah, for real.
Most Def, bro. That album is a banger, bro.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
It's a banger. So when you, because we got to wrap it up here in a bit, but like when you think about, I was thinking about like, I've always wanted to do music, but that ain't my thing. I know that's not my thing. You know what I'm saying? I'll be like, yo, if I can write or if I can sing, this is what I would sound like, you know? But like when you were writing and stuff like that, are you like, yo, I set out specific times a day? Or are you like, oh man, I just had a bomb date. Like, yo, like I'm going to the studio right now. I gotta get this down. What is your process?
So it's all sporadic. So I write and cut and engineer everything in my crib. Because that's my safe space. That's where if I can't go to sleep at 4 a.m, I got an idea, I don't gotta get in the car or drive nowhere. I just, go upstairs, start recording. And so I think for me, man, I don't know, man. It's just, I like to just be able to, get the ideas out whenever I have them. There's no like specific time or anything like that. Like my music literally comes from whatever I feel in the moment. I write it down and go to the equipment or, pull up the keys if I got a production idea first. And that's really how I do it. But I don't work on a schedule. And I say this all the time. I think that's impossible for creatives to do. Like when I was writing a lot for other artists, when they're like, okay, we need you at the session from 2 to 5. It's like, who's to say I'm going to feel like being creative from 2 to 5 o'clock? Like that just might not be it that day, So I think that's why having my own equipment in the house and knowing how to, engineer it serves me perfectly, because you never know when it's going to hit you. And if you can't get those ideas out right away, even if you write it down, sometimes you can't tap back into the spirit of whatever you're feeling in that moment. So you got to be able to just get it out whenever you feel like it. But I can't be like, all right, I'm going to work on the album today from 8 p.m. until 1 a.m.
Yeah.
Like, nah. I take
Let me get an outlook reminder.
Yeah, for real. I take so many breaks with my music. Like when I don't feel it, it's like I'm out of here.
All right. So I got this little hypothetical question I prepared for you, right? So you got 3 opportunities, right? But you only can pick one.
Okay.
Right? Out of the 3 opportunities, all right? Record an album, executive produced by Babyface. That's one.
Okay.
All right. The second one, Storm Roll, 5 Heartbeats Part 2. All right. Directed by Spike Lee. All right.
Okay.
That's 2. Or perform alongside Rihanna this Super Bowl. Which one you picking and why?
That's good. That's good.
Babyface and Rihanna.
You know what? Unpopular opinion. I'm gonna go with the Super Bowl with Rihanna. I think that visibility is unmatched, and we're talking about trying to bring R&B to the world and an audience that doesn't understand. So I'm looking at, even though it's hypothetical,
history, Super Bowl.
Yeah, I'm looking at the history of it. Yeah, and the fact that it will put, that's one of the highest watched events in television. So I think that would introduce so many new people, not just to me, but to the type of R&B music that they say doesn't exist. So as an advocate for real quality R&B music, I think that's it. And then you know, we can easily work it. Hit baby face like, yo, it's me from the Super Bowl. Yeah.
Monetize.
You know what I'm saying? But yeah, I would go with that, man. I think that, yeah, I would love to push that message like to the world. Like, you know.
Okay. So what's next? What we got upcoming? What should we be on the lookout for?
More music, man. A lot more music. I just did a documentary called SoCal Soul with SoundCloud that just dropped.
Okay.
Literally just dropped a couple of days ago, and it's highlighting like the R&B soul scene in Southern California and like some key players they've identified that has really like helped push the genre forward. So I was blessed to be one of the artists that they highlight in that, which is, you know, super cool. And more music. Literally, I'm already working on my next couple projects. I don't want to like spoil it, but yeah.
Leak that to me.
Yeah.
I got you.
Yeah, it's some familiar stuff. It's some familiar stuff that I'm just taking a different approach to.
Okay.
So I'm excited for that. More shows, man. I'm a live music guy. I come from live music, so I think I'm the most excited about, you know, getting back out there and touring some more. So yeah, more R&B.
Dope, man. Well, hey, ladies and gentlemen, we come to like the ending of our show. We thank you for tuning in today. But as I always do before we conclude, I always open up the microphone and table to our guests and to our hosts. We'll go around the table today. GQ Nesto, is there anything you would like to share with our viewers and listeners?
Shit, you know, thank you everybody for definitely listening to us. We really appreciate any comments. Follow us on all our social media platforms. We definitely got some good content coming out, so this is definitely a good one.
For sure. Mr. Kenyon, anything?
Man, R&B is here. It's never leaving, never went anywhere. So just tap into it. And if you want to hear my R&B, you know what I'm bringing to the table. You can find me on all the DSPs, Kenyon Dixon, or just follow me, Kenny Got Soul, IG, Twitter, same. And only if you really love R&B, because there's a lot of R&B stuff happening on my platforms. But yeah, just tap into the R&B that you love. That's what I'm here for.
For sure. And I'm your boy Jude. We thank you for tuning in. God bless you. We out. Peace.